It's all about money. With your host, CPA and forensic accountant, Sam Rosenfarb.
You're watching It's All About Money. Nobody knows more about money than accountants. Hi, I'm Sam Rosenfarb. I'm a forensic accountant. I've been an accountant for over 30 years, and I can tell you from firsthand experience that everybody, in some way on a daily basis, is motivated by money. I've been directly involved in the startup of hundreds of businesses. I've seen people start with nothing and build their businesses to be worth millions of dollars. I've also seen businesses worth millions of dollars become worthless. This show is all about educating you, teaching you about the financial aspects of life around us, the ways which you can spend, invest, control, and maintain money and its proper place in your life. You know that computers have created enormous wealth. Bill Gates is the richest man in the world. Although the internet is still in its infancy stage, there's still tremendous potential. Today's show is about conducting business on the internet. We'll also discuss the year 2000 and the problems that may affect us all when the new millennium begins. We have with us two of New Jersey's foremost experts in the field. Mark Betz is a recognized authority on internet programming and software development. He's also an editor at Windows Tech Journal. He's the lead developer, president, and CEO of InCurrent Corporation, located in Parsippany, New Jersey. Richard Ravin is a partner at the Roseland, New Jersey law firm of Ravin, Saracen, Cook, Baumgarten, Fish, and Rosen, where Mr. Ravin leads the firm's Internet and Computer Law Department. He's a renowned expert who lectures frequently on computer issues and has written numerous articles about the Internet. Rick, as a lawyer, how did you first get involved in computers?
Well, actually, I got involved in computers as a law student. I bought my first computer when they were first coming out with desktop, what we call desktop models now.
Those in the old days, right?
No hard drive, just floppies, and you can hold about 20 pages on one floppy, and then you had to move to the next floppy.
And what interested you about computers when you were in law school?
I had always been interested in computers when they came out. I needed it as a matter of necessity because my handwriting was atrocious. I typed all my exams and used a computer for all my outlines.
So you used it as a word processor?
Yes, I did.
Mark, what does InCurrent Corporation do?
Well, Sam, we're all about doing business online and, more importantly, interacting with your customers on the internet. We think at InCurrent that the internet is going to become the next in-the-home interface between consumers and their service providers, in our case specifically financial service providers.
What does in-the-home interface mean?
Well, the same way that the ATM machine over about a 15-year period has become the standard way most people interact with their banks, we're going to put an interface that's just as capable and just as useful, but we're going to put it in the home, on your computer screen, at your desk, in your living room or your den, or in fact in your workplace where you can interact with your providers.
People use their ATM machines to obtain cash, and sometimes to make deposits.
To transfer money.
To transfer money from one account to another account.
Check balances, and in fact now with some of the newer models to see the last 7 transactions on your statement. A great deal more information will be available over ATMs in the future than is available now. And in fact, the internet provides us with an opportunity to build very rich interfaces that you can use to interact with your providers in many different ways. So
the consumer will be able to interact with providers, credit card providers,
Absolutely.
Card providers?
Absolutely. Not only, specifically in our business, credit card issuers and other different forms of payment cards that aren't specifically credit cards. We could talk about that a bit later. But throughout the financial services sector, you see this change happening, and it's happening at a tremendous pace.
And how will that affect business generally?
Well, I think it'll affect businesses in a number of ways. Specifically, many businesses are going to find that they now have more convenient options for engaging in cash management activities, for example. I mean, the ways that businesses interact with their banks, be it their investment bank, their lending bank, it's going to change dramatically over the next 10 years.
If I'm a small businessman and I want to begin to think about doing business on the internet, what do you think I should do first? Should I see a lawyer?
Well, it certainly would be helpful. There are a number of issues that any business person or any individual wanting to start out on the internet should consider. Like, for instance, getting trademark protection for whatever trade name or domain name that you're going to use.
So if we were to broadcast It's All About Money over the internet, we'd have to trademark the name so that nobody else could use it?
That would be your best starting place. To do a search, first you have to search that the trademark is available, and then you have to determine if you're going to register it after the search comes back, because a trademark is a identifier of a source of goods or services. So it's not the situation where you say that you have one particular mark and that someone else is using it and you can't use it. That person may be using it to sell cars, and you may want to use it to sell, for instance, online service for money.
So you could sell ABC accounting services even if somebody's selling ABC cars on the internet?
Yes.
They're both acceptable.
That's correct.
Is that an expensive process to search these names?
No, it's not at all. It's approximately $350 to do a federal trademark search for searching for common law, for state registries, and also the federal registry. And then based on that result, then you and your counsel will sit down and say, okay, do we want to go forward? And then it's about another $350 fee for the Patent and Trademark Office.
To register the trademark?
Yes.
So for $700 you could register a trademark assuming that it's available.
Yes, those are the costs involved.
And Mark, assuming I want to do business on the internet, let's assume I've developed my own cosmetics company, right? I'm in the field, I've developed lipsticks, and, eyeshadow, and I want to market it on the internet. Would that be less expensive than marketing it through stores, through department stores?
Well, the initial reaction of most people in the systems industry is to say yes, and in fact it's hard for us to understand how it couldn't be. The software, the necessary internet connections and all must add up to less than the costs of printing catalogs and doing all the other traditional forms of marketing.
I don't have to mail anything to anybody.
No, you don't. But in fact, early adoptees tell us that it can be roughly the same level of cost, simply because I think the technology is not as fully understood as the older methods are. In many cases you can't not do the older methods, you have to add the internet methods to them, so that's an additional cost as opposed to a replacement.
So you see internet as an additional cost to distributing through stores or mail order?
Well, certainly for traditional businesses that want to go out online, but there are plenty of businesses, take the best known, for example, Amazon.com, which is only selling books online. But I think if you went and talked to the folks at Amazon.com, they'd tell you that a number of other costs have arisen that wouldn't have arisen in the traditional marketplace. I wouldn't view the internet necessarily as a place to save a whole bunch of money. It can very well be the case that it's less expensive to do business there, but more importantly, it's a new channel of delivery, it's a more interactive, it's a richer channel of delivery, and it's certainly one where you can get a good return on your investment.
It also enables you to start a business like Amazon.com from your home.
It sure does.
You don't need a lease, you don't need a location, you don't need registers.
Yes, certainly your infrastructure investment can be significantly less, or at the very least, let's say, significantly different.
Amazon.com, for some of our viewers who may not know, sells books through the internet.
And CDs recently. Yeah.
CDs as well, so they're like Borders or Barnes & Noble.
Borders without borders. If you
Borders without borders. Is doing business online, does it require any other special expertise or special legal commitment other than the trademark protection?
Well, yeah, you have to be aware of copyright infringement, you have to be aware of defamation laws, of privacy laws, and you not only have to be aware of the laws in the United States, but in other states and internationally. For instance, the former CEO and president of CompuServe was just convicted in Germany for peddling pornography.
In Germany he was convicted, but CompuServe doesn't peddle pornography.
Well, some of the users of CompuServe transmit pornography over their online service, and Germany has a very strict pornography laws, and it holds anyone, basically anyone who has any part in the transmission of those pornography images responsible. And it was a very big case, and as a matter of fact, in my next newsletter I'm going to be writing an article on it, and there is legislation in Germany now to undo that effect, because the court took the ball and ran with it, and then the prosecutors actually tried to backpedal and not get the CompuServe.
Sure, it seems totally unfair that he's providing these access lines over the internet and somebody's using them to portray pornography.
Well, this is the problem that you have with, as Mark said before, a borderless medium, and that is the very interesting concept for legal scholars to tackle. Is, normally you talk about jurisdiction in terms of physical borders, but here there are no physical borders. And what does it mean when you say you have a law in Germany that says you can't have pornography, but in the rest of, not in the rest of the world, but say in the United States, where pornography is legal, it's obscenity that's not legal. in the United States. So it is legal to have non-obscene pornography, yet so you have a website that discloses and displays pornography, and it could be illegal and in another country, and if you set foot in that other country, you could go to jail.
I know from my business as an accountant, it becomes fairly complex as to which state should be entitled to collect the income tax when you're doing business online through the internet. Is software available to track sales by states if you're doing business on the internet?
Well, it's pretty tough to do that for a number of reasons. I mean, it is possible, for example, when you see an incoming address, to do a query against the National Internet Database that tells us who's registered a domain name and where it comes from. But it's really not possible without voluntary submission of information by the customer to know precisely where they're coming from. I also want to interject, based on what Rick was saying earlier, that actually one of the earliest cases I'm aware of involving CompuServe, interestingly enough, goes back to I believe either the early 90s or late 80s. And there was a video game called Castle Wolfenstein, which portrayed Nazis, fortunately as the targets of violence in this case. And CompuServe got in a whole bunch of trouble, and that game was actually banned.
Why? What was the problem?
Well, in Germany, you're not allowed, apparently, and I'll let Rick deal with the legal issues, but you're not allowed to have images of Nazism, and you're not allowed to portray wanton violence. And the computer game did both of those. And in fact, it was banned in Germany, and CompuServe had a big problem. By the way, one of the most popular computer games in history, the precursor of Doom, and CompuServe had to pull it from its network because there was no way for them to keep it from being distributed in Germany.
CompuServe is another competitor to America Online, similar?
Well, they were. They've been absorbed by America Online's parent at this point. So.
And they've both been combined into one?
Well, no, they're separate brands and separate systems, but I don't think anybody believes it's going to remain the case for forever. So.
Are there other ways to get to the internet other than one of these online services?
Sure, you can talk to Bell Atlantic to give them a free plug. Bell Atlantic's got just about every area of the country has numerous internet service providers that can connect you to the internet for very, very reasonable fees, usually $10, $15 a month.
Is the internet connected through phone lines?
Well, much of it is. The backbone is over dedicated high-speed data connections. So.
Rick, how would somebody, assuming they did this trademark search, assuming they wanted to sell cosmetics online, would they just pick a phone number or create a web page? Is the web page something that a lawyer should review?
There's certainly many aspects of a web page that a lawyer should review. You need to make sure that the content that's displayed on the website is content that the owner of the site has the right to display, that it's not infringing on other copyright material or other trademarks, or that it's not disclosing certain trade secrets of some particular corporation.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with Mark Betz and Rick Ravin talking about how you can make money on the internet and how you could deal with the year 2000 on your computer. Thanks.
I'm Javed Mashkuri. I joined the Peace Corps because it gave me an opportunity to do something worthwhile in a place that was much different than the place that I grew up and knew. When I got to Mali, it blew me away. My job was to train local masons and well diggers to construct safe drinking water wells. Peace Corps showed me what happens when you don't have access to health care. We were providing clean water, which to everyone there is health. And we try to do the same thing here by just providing health care. Compassion, perspective, a sense of adventure. Each and every day, those three things help me get through the day and make me a better doc. It's given me more self-confidence in dealing with patients and other people, and also helps me through the most difficult times because I've already been through a lot of those. I'd recommend the Peace Corps to anyone that was thinking about any job. It'll help them excel and be better at whatever they do. I think in Peace Corps you learn the value of service. You're going to want to be in that position to give service back.
Peace Corps volunteers, changing the world, changing America.
Hi, we're back with It's All About Money, talking with Mark Betz and Rick Ravin on how you can make money on the internet. Tell me, how do we get older people? How can we educate people my age to learn how to deal with the internet and be active in the internet?
It's difficult, I have to admit. I mean, it's, one of the greatest challenges for the computer industry, something that myself, my colleagues, the industry in general have spent literally thousands of man-years by this time trying to deal with, is the complexity of computing. It's hard. The Macintosh, for example, was a platform that made its hallmark on being easy to use, and it was, and there's still.
I guess it was easier than others at the time.
Easier than others, but still, it's not a toaster, and in fact, it's not even a VCR in terms of complexity. And you know, it's.
I mean, 99% of the people out there still can't figure out how to program their VCR.
It's true.
To tape the show, although they'd like to.
And yet, the computer opens up a world of email, of information that's just so astounding in its impact that there's got to be a way to leverage technology to get people closer to it without as much trouble and as much effort. And in fact, I'd venture to say that that's a lot of what Bill Gates is about. A lot of what his vision is about is trying to take that complexity on his platform, naturally, and make it into something that's approachable for people.
And is that working?
Well, certainly it's working if you look at the adoption numbers. I mean, home computers are penetrating households at an amazing rate, and that's largely due to the commoditization, if you will, of the computing platform, which we have to thank Bill Gates and Andy Grove of Intel for, to some extent. Yeah. So yes, it is working, but it takes time.
Rick, tell us, what is the year 2000 issue that we hear about in computer problems? What does that mean?
Actually, Mark would probably be better to explain the actual problem, but simply put, when you, as you and I write the year 1998, we just used 2 digits, so did the early programmers back in the 60s and 70s to save space on hard drives and magnetic all kinds of magnetic media. So today we're left with a legacy of a two-digit representation for a 4-digit number.
So some of the computers can only read the 2 digits, is that?
Yes, so the computer is going to read 98, or in the year 2000 it's going to read 00 as 1900. So instead of a computer thinking that it's dealing with a date in the year 2000 or a date of 2001 or 2002, right, it's going to read it as 1901 or 1902. I'll give you an interesting an example. For instance, pharmaceutical manufacturers and distributors may have goods in their warehouse which has an expiration date of 3 years. So it's 1998, and they punch in the expiration or the discard date as 01. Well, 01 becomes 1901, so the computer automatically schedules for discard anything that's over 3 years. Well, 1998, it's 90.
Is after 1901.
That's right. So it's 97 years old already.
So all the merchandise gets thrown out.
It's scheduled for discard. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Rick. What we're really talking about here are assumptions. And this is something that computer programmers do a lot of. When we're writing software, it's always cheaper to assume something than it is to actually code for it. So rather than code for that extra 2 digits, the assumption was made that 19 always appears in front of those 2 digits. And therefore, as Rick said, 01 turns into 1901, and the air traffic control system goes haywire or something similar.
So nobody should take a flight on New Year's Eve 2000? Or
I don't subscribe to most of the hysteria surrounding it.
You don't? You don't think it's as big a problem as the media has made out?
It's a big problem. I don't think any airplanes will be coming down.
You don't think airplanes will come down or elevators are going to stop working?
That's an interesting point. Recently, the insurance carriers, certain insurance carriers for airline carriers are excluding the first 2 weeks of the new millennium from coverage, meaning that airlines...
Are they concerned about crashes?
Of course they are, and especially if you look at the recent report card generated out of the Congress by a special subcommittee on the year 2000 problem, it gave FAA a failing mark. Right. Which means it will not be in compliance.
That's not very comforting, is it?
Well, but remember, we're talking about date calculations. If it's not something that's date sensitive, it's not going to fail due to a year 2000 problem. So generally, date calculations would be things like scheduling. I could certainly see the airlines having a problem with maintenance schedules. I could certainly see them having a problem with parts deliveries, with routing, with ticket sales.
What should cause an airplane to fall from the sky?
I don't think any aircraft control systems will shut down. By the way, there are those people out there, and I'm not an expert on this subject, there are those people out there who will tell you one of the biggest problems, and one of the unsung problems, if you will, are the literally millions of what we call embedded systems. Those are small chips that are embedded in everyday devices, from cell phones to toasters, for that matter, that make date assumptions and may in fact make assumptions that that the 19 should appear in front of a 2-digit date.
Including heart pacemakers are known to have date-sensitive embedded microprocessors.
So a heart pacemaker may stop at the year 2000 because the computer
Well,
chip
here's the big unknown. The big unknown is 3 things can happen. The computer or microprocessor can stop working. It can give you corrupt information, or it can give you garbled information, information that's not even recognizable. And one of the big problems, especially with embedded microprocessors, is A, where are they, and B, what will they do? Will they stop working, give you corrupt information, or just give you garbled information?
How does the year 2000 it should become of interest to lawyers?
Well, it becomes interest to lawyers in a couple of ways. Number one, I practice bankruptcy, and our firm practices bankruptcy. I also practice commercial litigation. So this is an interesting area for me because it's a convergence, if you will, of more than one practice area that I have.
Do you think this may be responsible for the bankruptcy of some corporations?
Oh, I don't. There's no doubt that there will be business failures due to year 2000. Here's why. Let's assume that you even have your own internally, that you've taken care of your own year 2000 computer problem. What about your suppliers? Have they done it? Do you have key suppliers that are not year 2000 compliant? If you rely on just-in-time inventory software and
So you mean if I'm relying on a supplier to supply me with merchandise, he may not be able to supply me with merchandise because he's not 2000 compliant? 2000 compliant means they've complied with all the things necessary to...
2000 compliant generally means, and there's no standard definition for year 2000 compliant, so it's very important if you're doing any negotiating that you do agree on what the standard of year 2000 compliance is. But generally it means that a program will process data correctly before and after the year 2000 and not give you garbled information.
Couldn't these corporations just test compliance?
It's not easy to do by any means.
Couldn't I just shut down my system and tell my system that it's really June 25th, 2001 and see what happens?
It'd be nice if it was that easy. Unfortunately, a couple of things prevent that. Number one, there are many, many hundreds of inputs and outputs to the average piece of computer software. It's very difficult even for a knowledgeable programmer, those far more knowledgeable than me even, to figure out what all those inputs and outputs should be. Secondly, there are literally, I can't even give you a specific number, but it's been estimated there are billions of lines of COBOL code out there, what we call legacy code, systems authored anywhere from 1955 onward.
Legacy to historical.
Legacy. In those days, the programmers pretty much figured in 5 years the software would be replaced by something, and it's still out there running, lumbering along on some IBM system someplace. There is so much of the code, and remember that computer programs are text. It's literally hundreds of thousands and millions of lines of text, and you have to go through that text line by line, looking for every instruction that references the suspect date field and correct it.
So this compliance can cost lots of money. It can be very expensive.
Well, there's estimates from the Gartner Group of 300 billion to 600 billion worldwide. And the United States is the leader in terms of compliancy, yet and there's recent reports that Britain and Israel are 3 months behind United States. You see, they keep score like a golf game. How many strokes behind the leader? In this case, the United States is the rest of the world. And Western Europe is 6 months, 6 to 9 months. There's Asia and Russia, which is as much as 18 months behind. So obviously, we're almost a year and a half to the new millennium.
But those countries that are behind, they have the advantage of seeing what's going to happen here first, right?
And it's the fact that the U.S. has had computer systems longer than just about anybody, and so we've probably got a lot more legacy code to worry about than those countries.
So countries in Asia, they say if U.S. doesn't have a problem with the year 2000, we don't have to do anything.
Well,
save all that money.
And part of the problem is there's not enough awareness being drawn to the attention by the administration, by government. And because of this, many people are still unaware of the problem. I have a list of about 11 steps, and the first 11 steps to address the year 2000 problem. The first step is become aware.
Right.
People aren't aware.
How could our viewers help? I mean, how does it help our viewers to be aware?
Well, it helps a number of ways. For instance, first of all, utility companies also have a tremendous year 2000 compliancy concern.
Right, electricity may end in the year 2000.
There's no electricity, a lot of things aren't going to work. The telephone companies, they all have year 2000 concerns, and they're hopefully addressing them. but whether every phone system across the country and every utility customer is going to have service on the first day of the new millennium is unknown.
Mark, tell me, what's an internet card holder service? That's what InCurrent produces.
That's what we produce. Well,
what is that?
It's our way of talking about the range of activities that a card issuing institution, a financial institution, can offer its card holders on the internet.
A card issuing institution, could that
Right.
be my Bloomingdale's card?
Sure, it could be your Bloomingdale's card, it could be your Shell gas card, it could be your Citibank Visa card. There are many different kinds of plastic payment cards that people use to substitute for cash, basically, or to provide a personal credit line.
My ATM card is also a
Your
card.
ATM card, although we don't,
purposes?
and Current doesn't focus much on ATM cards because they're really a proxy for a checking account. Our strength is in institutions that issue payment cards, as I've discussed, fleet cards, oil and gas cards, retail cards, and charge cards.
And your system will allow the consumer to access his card information
That's correct.
via the internet.
That's correct. I mean, about 80% of all purchasing transactions on the internet now are made using charge cards, using credit cards. And certainly when you're flying around cyberspace, buying and purchasing things, it'd be nice to be able to check your balance and find out what your current status of your account is.
When people are buying their merchandise over the internet using their credit card, does that present a security risk?
Well, it's a hot topic. My personal feeling is very straightforward. There are security risks every time you exchange your personal information with another party. When you hand your credit card over to a waiter in a restaurant and it disappears for 5 minutes and you don't know what happens to the carbons, that's a security risk. The internet is a lot more secure than most of the ways in which we use that stuff. So.
If you want to learn more about the internet, you want Business Legal Alert from Ravin Saracen, give me a call, Sam Rosenfarb, at 75 Livingston Avenue, Roseland, New Jersey, 07068, area code 973-535-1300 for you to become a subscriber. Mark, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks for being a guest.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank
It's
you
been
very
enjoyable.
much. I appreciate it. Been terrific.